And now, in lessons which are going to be taught in classrooms from today, children will learn how to deal with that sort of misogyny online under new guidance for schools in England. The updated curriculum warns against stigmatising boys, but will include a focus on identifying positive role models for them whilst challenging myths about women and relationships.
The lessons will also introduce positive conceptions of femininity and masculinity, explore the impact of AI, deepfakes and pornography, and include discussions around consent.
Well, we are joined by 15-year-old Josh Sargent. Now, Josh, by his own admission, was once drawn into what people call the manosphere by controversial influences like Andrew Tate. When he was just 12 years old, he's here alongside psychotherapist Will Adolphi, who talks openly about his own experiences of toxic online culture in order to help young boys. Very good morning to you both.
Morning.
Josh, you're very open about what happened just 3 years ago. So talk to us about what 12-year-old boys, like you were back then, see online.
So it really is an influx of this algorithm, a really pervasive algorithm, bombarding these young boys and men with content that's pushing a specific standard, a standard that these young men are told to fit into society. Right. You need to, look a certain way, make a certain amount of money, and that's a standard that's told that you have to conform to in order to be seen, validated, find a relationship, which is really worrying. But they offer a solution, well, they call it a solution that they offer, which is their communities and their content, which is sometimes paid for by these young boys.
When you say bombarded by the algorithm, how was that actually happening in practice? Were you sitting on your phone and, was it on Instagram? What would be the thing where it suddenly would pop up?
Yeah, so in 2022, at the height of it, when certain influencers were like the most Googled people in the world, I don't think you could go on a social media app and within 10 seconds not experience some of their content, because the way these algorithms work is once you watch some of their videos and engage with them, the algorithmic personalisation kicks in, and then suddenly, it's all you see, because they know that you're interested in it. And, it's attractive to young boys, and it really is attractive to young boys.
So what is it that these influencers are saying to you as a young teenager that actually is very negative? I mean, what if you're a parent watching and you don't see what your young boys are seeing, what is it that is toxic and negative about what these influencers are promoting? Is it the attitudes towards girls, the way that you're being encouraged to act or think about women?
Yeah, I mean, the attitudes towards women is definitely a big part of it. Right. Women are seen in a more traditional sense. You're taught that, they have a submissive place in society, phrases like women belong in the kitchen, very commonly propagated. And you've also got the anti-institutional side. So as a young person, the education system, your government, your society is critically important to you. And these influencers are teaching that this is an oppressive system run by this sort of system of elites that is designed to keep people in this idea of a rat race of 9-to-5 employment for their personal gain.
So it's undermining of authority, encouraging you not to respect schools, teachers, parents, government, and also promoting views towards women which may not be healthy, and also body image as well.
Yeah, the body image is a big part of it. I mean, I think, rightly so, the body image of young girls and teenage girls is discussed quite a bit. But I don't see the body image of young guys talked about as much. And it really is quite a big thing when you're on a social media feed and you've got all these, jacked, muscled-up guys as a standard. And, it's kind of framed that if you don't look like that, then it's a problem with you, you're lazy. And a lot of these influencers, they're not, getting these gym gains naturally. They're taking, quite heavy steroids.
And also at the age, sorry, I was just going to say, at the age of 12, it would be impossible to even get anywhere near that anyway, wouldn't it? Sorry.
But the point Josh makes is really important. I remember I was Education Secretary with Gok Wan. He showed me parents watching 13, 14-year-old boys and girls talking about body image amongst themselves. And the thing which is shocking for the parents is the boys are kind of as affected, as wound up, as upset by it. And I think lots of parents don't understand what's going on. I mean, Will, for Josh to come out and talk about this in this way, it's a brave thing to do, isn't it? And it's an important thing to do.
It's incredibly brave. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about boys, but few people, I think, are talking to them. To understand...
Hearing from them.
Hearing from them, exactly, with them, to really understand the issues that boys are facing today. You know, they have very real questions about the world that we're currently living in. You know, this economically unstable world, and a world where there's social media, where there's body image, where there's this sense of how do I have a purpose? You know, how do I belong? And that was a big pull for me when I was going online as well. And we've been speaking about this because it really can feel like there's this climate where the world is dismissive, even resentful at times towards masculinity. And so finding a space online where someone was telling me masculinity isn't wrong, it was really relieving, and I felt that sense of belonging. So I think that's a big part of this as well.
Well, talk a little bit more about that, Will, because we can't teach boys that there's something wrong with wanting to be fit and healthy and attracting a partner and wanting to do well in the world and being robust and strong when it comes to your personality and your feelings. I mean, that in a whole discussion about toxic masculinity, we can't undermine some, you know, boys' perception of masculinity.
No. And I think when we come to having these conversations at schools, it is a very tricky thing to actually do, to get that balance of, OK, what do we love about being a boy? What do we love about being a man? And what do we want to perhaps change? Because there are some things that might be harming us. And so facilitating those conversations is a real specialist skill. And I think men are in a particularly unique position because I, as a man, can enter a space and I can say, I and we, I can speak from that and I can invite boys in a way that doesn't feel shaming. But that requires a level of training that I really want the government to understand how much resource and investment we'll need to help teachers to be able to facilitate. I actually believe we'll need outside help because teachers are already overwhelmed as it is. And particularly if you imagine you're a female teacher, and I work with teachers all the time, particularly female teachers, they come up to me and they say, look, I want to help, I want to approach the situation, but how do I even start that conversation?
And how worried should we be, Will? Because, you know, if I think back, you know, when I was the same age as Will, which is, I have to say, slightly over 40 years ago, far fewer women were working. Very many of my friends' mums stayed at home all the time. There was a much more traditional view about the difference between men and women. And in my life, I think to myself, surely we're in a much better place, a more progressive place, where we understand the importance of women and the roles they play in society and working women. And yet it feels as though in schools, actually, amongst men, amongst young men, some of those attitudes are becoming worse than 20, 30, 40 years ago in terms of what role women should be expected to play. Is that right?
I think at the heart of that, for me, is this sense of tribalism I see that's happening. If I, as a boy, a young man, experience a bit of dismissiveness or, let's say, shame around masculinity, I might go online and find someone telling me masculinity isn't wrong. But then what can happen, and what happened with me was, it was distorting my worldview because it got taken to a real extreme where it felt like the whole world was rigged against men. And that's a real issue because when I'm in that sort of tribal thinking, I'll look at a woman or I'll look at someone who's quote-unquote feminist and I'll shut down and I'll see that as a threat. And I think that is influencing the way a lot of boys are now viewing not just women, but feminism, woke culture, the left. And I do see that happening. I don't know if you see that as well, Josh.
Yeah, well, I think how we need to think of these online subcultures is it's an alternative. It's an alternative that's being presented to the traditional system. And if the traditional system and the institution, they feel like, personally, these young boys, is against masculinity and against, you know, this traditional concept of, you know, being strong, being dominant, which, you know, isn't necessarily in itself bad. It just needs to be in a healthy way. But if they feel like the institution is against them, the alternative will become attractive in terms of masculinity, which is why I think it's so important that the Department of Education really gets this policy right. Well,
I hope you go into a lot of schools, both of you, because I think you've both got such great insight into this. And, you know, good luck to all the teachers who have to start teaching this stuff, because it's going to be challenging, isn't it? But thank you so much, both of you, for coming in. So interesting.
I think just having the conversation like we've just had with young boys and girls in class, I mean, just talking about it is such an important step.
Without it, as Will says, becoming tribal.
Yeah.
It's not us against you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's really important to have it in a collaborative way. Thanks both very much indeed.